Today we're covering a pretty sensitive topic, one that we really don't ever want to have to address because we don't want it to happen to us, and that's getting ripped off by our clients, getting into a situation where we either sell products or perform the services and not get paid by the person that we sold the product to or perform the service for. Now, getting ripped off or not getting paid or getting the short end of the stick is something that happens all of the time. It doesn't matter what industry that you're in, so nobody really is immune to this. Now, what I want to share with you is, one, how to avoid getting into these situations altogether. Two, the recourse that you have in the event that something like this happens to you. And then three, share with you some personal experiences so hopefully you can learn through my mistakes. And of course, none of this constitutes as legal advice, just want to give you my personal experiences. Now, the first step in avoiding this altogether, avoiding not getting paid for your product or your service, is to make it very clear, crystal clear, what your offer is. Make sure that if you're selling a product, you're very clear on what exactly it is that you're selling. And then also, if you're performing a service, you make it crystal clear what it is that you're actually going to do. Please don't leave anything open interpretation. You may have an understanding of what your service is because you're the one that's doing it, but your client may have a different service. Again, this is across any industry, regardless if you're in real estate, regardless if you're in insurance, regardless if you're doing anything out there. It is going to apply to you. Make sure that it's crystal clear what you are offering and what you are not. And one of the best ways to avoid ambiguity is to make a contract or have a refund policy in place if you're selling products. Now, if you're creating a contract, make sure that the terms are in place. Make sure that the deliverables are in place. Make sure that you have a thorough understanding and detailed understanding of what both parties are going to do. Now, another very important step to avoid not getting paid for your service is to research your clients or research your business partners. Now, I completely understand that in certain scenarios, it's unavoidable, especially if you're, let's say, selling products. You're not going to be able to see who's on the other end of that. Now, when you're on the service part, when you're speaking to clients and speaking to your leads, then that's a little bit different. Then you can vet them out, do a little bit of research and see what their reviews are. If you can possibly swing it, try to see who else they've worked with in the past and try to have those conversations with past clients, past vendors. I understand that becomes a little bit tricky depending on the product or service that you're doing. But at the end of the day, do some research, do some recon, because it's these individuals that they leave clues if they're going to be bad people to work with or good people to work with. And the fourth way to avoid not getting paid is by taking a deposit or collecting the entire amount up front. Now, there's pros and cons to that strategy altogether, but at the end of the day, if you are able to, taking that prepayment is going to help you in the long run, and at least taking the deposit is going to really help you out and mitigate the risk that you're taking, because you can find yourself in a very lopsided affair where you're performing work after work after work and not getting compensated for it. And of course, you can construct your payment policy in every which way that you want, but it's most important to bill frequently and often, especially as you start out in the relationship with your new client. Now, those are just some practical strategies to avoid not getting paid, to avoid getting ripped off. Now, what happens in the event that you find yourself with the client that is unwilling to pay? Now, the recourse is going to vary country by country and state by state, but what's going to be super important, regardless of where you find yourself in the world, is get as much as you possibly can in writing. Now, if you have a contract, fantastic, great. If you don't happen to have a contract, it is what it is. At this point, what we're trying to do is build a case. So again, it's very important that you document as much as you possibly can. So send your invoices multiple times. Attempt to reach your client in multiple ways. You can call them, you can text them, you can email them. So remember that emailing and texting, that is more of a written format. So that's going to really help you out. Also, connecting with the individual on social media is encouraged. Now, there is a fine line between harassment and being diligent. So just make sure that you're diligent and not going overboard and calling 50 different times, just document everything that you're doing. Now, the next step is to send an attorney letter. Now, most attorneys will be able to help you out with this and are going to be able to do it at a relatively inexpensive cost. Now, of course, it depends which attorney you get, but at the end of the day, what you're looking to do is apply some pressure that you're willing to take it to that next level. And it's that pressure that most of the time will get your clients to pony up because they realize that this could get serious. Now, in the event that they don't take that seriously and are still refusing to pay up, then you can sue them. Of course, there is a large cost that you incur by doing that, so it is going to depend on how much they owe you, where you're going to really have to factor in, is this worth it? Is it worth me spending all of this money, all of this time, all of this energy to go after somebody that's just not going to pay up? Now, here's a sad reality, and a lot of people, unless you've been in a lawsuit, you just don't understand how this actually happens. But as somebody that's been party to several lawsuits where I haven't lost one yet, it's a little bit different than you would probably expect when it comes to a lawsuit. And when you win, you do not automatically get your money. There's still the time, the energy, the burden for you and the court to collect from the individual that owes you money. And it's frustrating. It is extremely frustrating. Now, I'll give you an example. I have sued in the state of Texas and I have won the judgment. And the judgment was for a good amount of money. I'm not going to tell you exactly how much. If you're really interested, then you can go on the docket and search it up for yourself. It's going to be right there. And I have won that. But the person is just not going to pay up. And all they did was file bankruptcy. And there's nothing that I could do. My debt got wiped away. So in many states, especially here in Texas, they are very friendly towards the individuals that actually owe money. So it is stacked against you if you're trying to collect payment. So just be aware of that. Now, that's just one personal experience. There are other personal experiences that have to do with a much smaller amount that I want to share with you as well. Now, another example comes in the form of a consulting client. Now, this individual, we'll call him Malik from Alexandria, Virginia. He was very adamant about wanting to connect with me and do consulting with me. So I had originally told him no and then told him no again, but then he was so persistent that I actually gave in and I did some consulting work with him. And 5 months later, we still find ourselves with no payment. Now, he has exchanged messages with me on social media, but he doesn't answer my calls, doesn't answer my texts. So every once in a while, he'll say, I'll pay, but that day never comes. Now, that was consulting, which is essentially time exchanged for money. So the only thing that I'm out there is the time that it took me to prepare the actual consulting itself and then the follow-up notes. So at the end of the day, if this individual chooses to pay up or not, the time's already gone. Now, another example comes in the form of the agency. So as most of you know, I do have an agency where I help real estate agents with their marketing. And this other example comes in the form of a husband and wife team. We'll just call them Justin and Gina out of San Antonio that hired the agency to do the work of lead generation. Now, this particular client did take up more resources than I would care for. There's that sales call that happened. There's the integrations call that happens. So this is where we integrate everything together. There's a strategy call that happened. And then there's the actual performance of the work. And everything was launched. The campaign was going. Leads were flowing in. And there's just so much production coming out of the campaigns. But then all of a sudden, we were asked to stop. And till this day, there's no payment. Now, what we do from the agency side is a little bit different than most marketing companies out there, considering that most marketing companies out there run the ads for their clients from their own ad accounts, from the marketing company's ad accounts. What we do is different. We run all of the campaigns, all of the ads from the client's ad accounts. So that way they continue building their brand, they continue getting all of that data in their accounts as opposed to ours. Now, it's a risk that we knew about and we were willing to take on early on, and we still do to this day. All the campaigns that we launch are on our clients' accounts, not ours. Now, the issue becomes for individuals like these that do not pay up. Well, they can immediately take you off of their ad accounts, their business manager, and their business page, and keep all of the work that you did, all of the campaigns, all the split testing, everything, and just launch the ads without you. Now listen, the reason that I share this is because nobody is immune. I don't want you to feel like a failure because you did all of this work for a client and they didn't pay you. That's not an indictment on you. That's an indictment on them. So it's either your choice of I'm going to take action and actually take it all the way through to the legal system, or just move on. It's up to you. It's a decision that now you need to make.